first. Okay. Alrighty. All right, I will share my screen with the meeting, but I don't have anything on the agenda besides talking about KubeCon a little bit. So chat about KubeCon. Please. All right. I see we have one new face here today as well. Philip or Philippe. We usually give some time at the beginning to introduce yourself if that interests you.
Oh no, putting me on the spot. Hey guys, I'm Philip. I met you guys over at KubeCon.
Oh yeah. Nice.
Yeah,
Welcome.
interested in seeing how you guys work and maybe contributing in some way.
Cool. Yeah. So Dimitro, Philip was at the cursed workshop.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Chris, we gave a workshop about Kagent. I've already told everyone else's, but we gave a workshop about Kagent at the KubeCon, and I don't know if you heard about this Light LLM CVE, but that happened about 20 to 30 minutes before our workshop, and they quarantined that dependency, so everybody's build failed. Like I had this whole plan of like, oh, you're gonna build it, and then you're gonna build it while we wait, and then we continued our talk, and I saw someone's was failing, and then basically it like ruined the whole workshop because nobody could actually build the software. So
classic. Yeah.
I think you saved it finally. Switching to Go and everything was nice.
Yeah. But it was interesting. But anyway, we did what we could. We did our best. So we had to do a quick switch over to Go. So KubeCon updates. So Kagent had its own booth at KubeCon this year for the first time, which was freaking awesome. Had a ton of interest, like ton of people came over asking really great questions, really good ideas. I think that like the Kagent is really like reaching a sort of level of legitimacy within the community, and a lot of people, like a surprising number of people, were talking to me about like how they were running it, and stuff like that, or all the testing they were doing, etc. Someone reached out to me today on Discord about a security review that they wanted, because like they're about to run this thing. They're looking to run it in production, and they need to get past the security review. So they were just asking me some questions. Somebody like it's just that's stuff like that. Like there was a PR today. I'll put it in, or yesterday, that I approved. I'll just put it in the chat. But it just kind of made me stop for a second, because it's one of those PRs that is actually like you would never think of unless you actually care about running this thing. Here. This. Where is my chat? I don't know. What is this Google Meet thing? I hate Google Meet. 1565. So, and it just struck me as something like the fact that someone even wants to add a different storage class to the Postgres that's bundled, it means that they actually are like interested in using this thing, so that, like, again, like moments like that where I'm like, oh, like people actually want to run this thing, and they need to be able to like add their stuff to it. So that's really just like really cool.
I saw that when I was looking at the releases. I was like, oh, nice, I'm going to update mine, because I used Longhorn as well. I was like,
oh, really?
Literally, I was going to be doing it shortly.
Oh,
so
nice.
That's cool.
Yeah. So just little things like that are really fun and gratifying. I don't know, Dimitri, do you have any takeaways from KubeCon you want to talk about?
Yeah, there was too many people, actually, too many things to follow. I was trying to focus first on people and then to watch videos after all recordings are published. So that was my plan. Yeah, it was really nice to see you all in person as well, and Bulls and all kind of what you mentioned. Like a lot of people have this interest, and it seems like it's much bigger than the year ago. We see like people are actually. I think there's more like 3-5 times more interest than on the previous KubeCon EU that we had in London, and which means for us potentially more contributors, more users, and yeah, that's interesting. Looking forward for that.
Yeah. The other thing I would say is, my biggest takeaway. I've been saying this to everyone. I think my biggest takeaway from this KubeCon was data sovereignty. Like people really want to own their data and they really want to own their platform. And Kagent really allows you, Kagent allows you to do that, right? There's no phone home. There's no like SaaS. It's just, this is your thing. You build it, you run it. And people, especially in the EU, are really down for that. So I think that, this like layer of like air gappable software that, on-prem is hot again. Like it is, we are in the middle of the SaaS apocalypse for many reasons. And so Kagent's in a cool space.
I know some people just starting building SaaS. Okay. Yeah.
Well, good luck to them. But anyway, forget I said that.
Yeah, I think if worth to mention also this observation about like isolation of agents and all kind of stuff around the sandbox, what we discussed and what we've seen on the KubeCon. That was like a couple of different projects were actually trying to present it. I think there are some solutions which exist on the hyperscalers, on the clouds, but also like some solutions which are just starting now. For example, imagine you could run like a kubelet as a separate node, which is specialized on the micro VMs, and every pod running in it will be like a micro VM isolated with this is something which is very, very inspiring for me to try these things at home at my home lab, and going to look in this more.
Yep. And we're definitely going to be adding that. So I had a first go at it before KubeCon, but I actually think we'll probably discuss it more at the contributor meeting. I hope I can make it. I might actually not be able to make it, but we'll discuss it definitely soon of how we're going to get those use cases and like sandboxing into Kagent, because it's very important. So yeah, a lot of cool stuff coming out or coming in.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. So in terms of the 080 release, nothing crazy, just kind of cool. Excited about it, right? Like we the Go SDK is now available. There are definitely some issues still. We're fixing them. Jet has solved a bunch of them. There's some more. Philip solved one of them also with the skills. So that we're going to be working through those. It's still definitely in POC, but I'm really hoping that by 09 that'll be the default path, because I just can't stand Python. Not only is it unperformant, but the fact that my coworker just pinged me today because there was let me find the details, but we have some code that checks is instance, and I guess is instance can break between versions of a library. So you can check like is instance of blank, that'll work in one version of a library, and even if it's the same object in a different version, it won't pass anymore. And like that just shouldn't. That's just not okay. Like that. This is not how languages should work. So go. Yeah. Anyway, so that's off. I'm done talking about Python. Yeah. So that's it on that guy. Yes. Good. I know. So actually, I do have one thing here. Jeremy, do you want to?
Yeah.
DB.
So, part of the move away from SQLite to Postgres was to enable us to have more consistent and a standardized approach around our migrations. Currently, we use Gorm and AutoMigrate, and that leaves the database in a not great state because from everything I have gleaned, Gorm AutoMigrate is additive only. So you could just have like old columns, old tables. It really makes our migration process, I guess, just very unprofessional feeling. So I am looking into and implementing a complete rewrite of migrations to use Golang migrate. Currently, that's in an init container before the controller runs. The actual queries are also being encoded as SQLC, and then that is being generated into Go code as a result. So there's type safety around all of that. I've done
one question about it. Comment: if we going to run something like this, and potentially someone will run like a controller with more replicas, and how you would solve it? I mean,
we have talked about that a bit.
Yeah.
The biggest thing that we're aiming to do there is to have backwards compatibility with our changes. So if you upgraded the database as the init container of one controller, then the other two controllers can continue to run against that database until they get rolled. A rollout strategy, having like an explicit one on the deployment would be helpful as well, because currently it does whatever Kubernetes default is, which I can't remember offhand. And then so having enforcement that our migrations and our database going forward is backwards compatible as to the best of our abilities. The biggest thing I have here is that because AutoMigrate kind of leaves the database in a weird state, I want to make sure that there's a consistent starting point for this migration process. I don't want to have, we have to have migrations that are on a fresh install match migrations that take over what Gorm AutoMigrate has done. And the cleanest way to do that is to make sure there's a good starting point. And so I'm currently defining a requirement that you have to be on 080 or above to then upgrade to the latest, which is not ideal, but it's a bandage that we're gonna have to rip off at some point, or we're gonna have to have this this transition manage any prior state of the database, which I think is way too much effort for this.
But what is the specific point for the init container still? Like, can it be done just a part of regular controller code at the beginning after we have like a leader election?
I guess it's something to look more into. I want to make sure this is extensible as well, and adding in hooks to be able to overwrite that was getting really complicated. So the cleanest approach felt like pulling it out into an init container, but I can do a little bit more digging into that.
It is a good
And-
point about the leader election, though, because then that helps with the backwards compatibility question. Because if you're the leader, then no one else is doing anything, right? So you don't have to worry about.
Yeah, I guess that's a
Well, no,
something
but
I'm
it's Postgres, so you can take a lock, right? Like you can, yeah. Like in
But your init container would take the lock, and then it does the migration, and then it releases the lock, and then the controller goes back in, and then it's like, hey, where's my column? It's gone, and I'm angry, right? So that's why there's the backwards compatibility question. Unless you just do this like thing where you have backwards compatibility just for a period of time. You're like, oh, this new one's backwards compatible to 0.8, but then later on it's only backwards compatible to 0.9. I don't know what you're.
No. I think the idea is that this system will be it will be backwards compatible as long as you're upgrading from 080 or above. So
What was the original complaint that you couldn't delete columns with Gorm? Like, if you're not going to delete columns, then what's the point of switching?
Well, the original complaint is just that Gorm doesn't let you actually manage migrations. So it's really scary from like a management perspective of a project, but we don't actually know how our migrations are being managed. And the reality is that SQLite is not it's not actually a good option anyway. And so having an ORM there is actually just scary. And
well, you just mean that Gorm is just checking what columns are there and just adding whatever new ones. It doesn't.
Exactly.
There's no actual migration script.
yes,
Yep.
exactly. So that the real thing that we're trying to do here is get away from Gorm, which if in an ideal world, I wouldn't have used it to begin with. That's on me, right? Like it was an ease of use thing, but that's the real goal here. And the reason for that is this is an effort to build towards like production readiness, right? Like we want to be able to say, migrations are consistent, upgrade to upgrade, like all that sorts of, like we want everything to be very controlled, right? Not only and
I didn't realize that Gorm. I didn't understand the issue with Gorm, so never mind. I take back my comment.
Yeah, and Gorm, from my understanding, has ways to do migrations, but I think that just getting rid of the ORM in general puts us in a much better state. Like having things explicitly defined and having like generated like SQL to generated Go code is a much better approach. So yeah, and then there was one other thing I was gonna say. I gotta think on it. I can't remember offhand. If I remember, I'll bring it up.
Okay.
Cool. But yeah, I know it's not ideal, but and we'll call this out very loudly everywhere. I'm imagining that everyone in this call is already on 080, so it will not affect anyone here. If you're not, okay, well we can figure that out. Again, it's not gonna happen right this second, but we want to just this is an effort of like we want to make Kagent right production software, and I don't think we can get there without being in full control of our migrations. And honestly, I do think we're gonna have to move away. Like there are, for example, like A2A just did a breaking change, and we have A2A data in our database, which is something we're gonna have to deal with. Like there are database things that we're going to have to actually tackle pretty soon, and having full control is going to allow that to happen in a controlled way.
So, I wanted to give a quick example as to like why I wanted to have a good starting point. If you had a Gorm migration, right, to a table that existed at whatever version, let's say 0710, and then 0711 adds a new column to that table. The only real way to upgrade to take over that migration process is to rerun the migrations and then have it, like if this table doesn't exist, then create the table. But to prevent the requirement of having like create the table and then create each individual column if it doesn't exist, I decided to just like have a known starting point. So if you went 0710 to 08 whatever or 09 whatever that contains this, you'd be in the same like you would be missing a column otherwise. and that would be a really bad state. So having a like you have to upgrade to 0.80 plus first prevents that.
Cool. All right. Dobus.
Yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about hooks. I created an issue for this suggestion, but I thought I'd just bring it up on the call as well in case there's something I could help with on that front. So basically with like Claude Code and all these other harnesses, open code and so on, you can define these things that are called like hooks, where when certain events are occurring, it like basically runs a command, and then the command like receives what action, like receives some kind of event, and then it can return back like for many events it can return back like some kind of judgment as well, like block that event or allow the event, or it can return back like something that it wants to inject into your chat as part of the thing. So I realized that some of the things that I was thinking I had to do by modifying Kagent, if it had a hook system, this would allow some sort of like more of a plugin based approach where
Sorry, I sneezed. Sorry.
Has the Kagent becomes like kind of more extensible using these hooks. And then, but for example, I was trying to inject like session IDs into the context, so I could have done that with a hook. There's like a session start hook. It would like run this command that tells it what do you want to do, and then the command can inject back into the context like, hello agent, like here's your name, here's your session ID. And then later on when it does something, there's also hooks you can have like, oh, when you go idle, you can have a hook that says, okay, the agent is done responding, and then you can have an idle hook that then like does something, like maybe checks like, have you completed all your to-do items? If so, then, or if not, then I'm gonna like immediately inject a new message like, don't stop, you have more work to do, and then like it can like continue and things like that. So I was looking at that with how that works with Claude, and I thought that would be a very valuable extension point to have in Kagent as well. So I just wanted to throw it out there and see what thoughts people have, or if there's some, like, what's the process to sort of design the feature before implementation, or decide whether or not to implement it at all.
You on mute, Ethan?
I just want to say that I agree. That's all.
Yeah, I
You're
think
saying-
the hooks directly also depend on the environment where to execute it. So if you just start with a regular agent and then execution environment, like it's a question how we want to implement it. If we, for example, would use just HTTP hook, it has a lot of it's easy, but it has a lot of stability, and how to retry it. It may be missing, it's not very reliable.
I thought it could be like skills, actually, like a container that you mount, and then it can run it in the container, same way that skills work. And then if you wanted it to be HTTP,
so if you consider it like as a skills, and then you run it in the same environment, then you need also to define what kind of hooks you will run, right? Is it just a static executable, or you want to bring like a Bash or Python or something, right? It's not so easy with that. And maybe it can be also like if this is like a workflow that we are talking about, then you can have a hooks on the higher level, like a workflow. Like we discussed one option, like temporal, but there are some pros and cons as well about it. So for example, they have something which is like a timer or signals that can be considered as a callback, or something which is like you start timer at the beginning of the workflow, and then you call back when you said there are no events or something. It calls back the agent, and it can be like a lifecycle hook. But it's really like depends on the two things, like workflow engine and the environment. So we need to think in these two directions how to put it together in the right way.
Yeah. And Claude Code, like it's a shell script that it runs. So you define the hook like declaratively, and then it just runs a command using shell.
Yeah, we don't want to bring shell scripts directly to the agents. I don't think this is anyone like really wants to do.
Why?
Isn't that how the scripts work?
Except
I'm not sure. Dimitri, why not?
Without sandbox.
Yeah, but they have we can use SRT in the conversational, and when we add like long-lived sessions, then we do it there. I mean, I think you can use whatever. It's funny. I actually agree with Dobas 100%.
I think it depends which agents. Like for agents which you give already like environment with a bash and everything, you know, maybe then it doesn't matter. But it opens a lot of security questions, like how and what will be running there, and you know, do you want to give it like a full file system, writable with all the hooks with the bash? You know, it's it's against regular container practices for security. But yeah,
Doesn't have to have a writable. I don't think it needs to be able to write to the file system necessarily. That would, like, I'm just thinking the way skills work, right? With skills, it has like its little folder. You could put whatever commands you want in there.
If it's skills often need to write. And what I'll say is that Kagent, again, like it will be moving in the direction of writable. It's not there yet, but a lot of these are going to need to be writable. But that's a whole other, like you talk about a to-do list, like that needs to be writable.
Well, yeah, but if you write it to the container, then it's ephemeral though, right? It wouldn't be useful in that case.
Unless you have a PVC or some other mechanism, yeah.
Yeah, so you'd have to have like a,
yeah,
this is for like a baseline.
You have a virtual file system which is like stored, distributed and stored like, I don't know, over database or something. You can write. It's very easy to implement, like in Go, a file system abstraction on top of Postgres, no issue. The question is like your bash will not recognize it natively, right? And then you need to have some other things like it's possible to do, but
I mean, bash, I think run the Go command and tell it, here's your virtual file system, like connect to that and do what you need to do, right? So it's just, I mean, I think the nice thing about the bash is that you can use the existing hooks that are out there, right? Like for example, there's a hook that like blocks destructive bash commands called like destructive command guard or something like that, right? Or there's a command that like rewrites shell commands to use this other command that uses fewer tokens. So there's a bunch of these like Claude hooks out there that you can get that like help you with various things.
Your specific example, you're trying to run the coding agents, right? And because you're running coding agents, it's opens all these patterns. You want to bring all the patterns from the coding agent, which is a generic AI agent, right? Which is lives on your computer typically and not lives in Kubernetes. And then you have to decide either you give it like the same environment or you kind of redo it to be more cloud native. And
but our agents are generic today. They just don't have a file system yet.
Yeah. Which I think everyone agree agents like file systems for skills, for markdown files. It gives a lot of good stuff. Yes.
But let's leave aside file systems for a second, and let's talk about like whether or not a general hooks system to sort of plug the holes. Like I think maybe the way that I frame this is all agents are becoming loops with hooks, right? They do like a couple of things. They have context gathering mechanisms, and they have hooks, and so yeah. No, go.
We have like ADK native hooks, right? ADK supports hooks. We just didn't attach them to the current runtime.
Exactly.
So we can do that.
I can't tap into those hooks though from my Kagent YAML, right? Like, there's no way for me
right now you can.
Changing code.
Right now you can, but you could do that. And then we need to decide how much we open it and how much it will be like to completely like run anything. So for example, you can run your bash curl and everything, you know, or you say, okay, we can have a certain functionality which we restrict, like with, like you said, you need to wake up agents, call back when something finished, call back on timer. Those are all good examples. We just need to decide how secure it should be, how, you know, what will be the runtime environment. Yeah.
That's why I'm bringing it up here rather than just starting with the PR. Because I realize there are a lot of sort of architectural questions, like should it be an HTTP like service-based thing that would be more like a Kubernetes approach, or should it be more like the skills, or maybe you can have two options? Like I can see
why not both?
If you have like an array of hooks and like one of them you say this is a command, another one you say is HTTP, like there's nothing particularly wrong with that.
Again, I think this is where you go from limited to you can do anything. It's like this is like the cheat code. This is like the envoy filter of this world, right? It's like this is where you go from being able to do most things to just being able to do anything.
Just
And
one warning about this unlimited thing. I remember when early experiments of people with hooks, there were very common mistakes. Like someone created a hook which was calling another cloud code in this hook, and it just did an indefinite loop. Very simple example. So the guy spent like $1,000 in one day, just not realizing what happened. And
okay, well they should have an agent gateway.
Yeah.
yeah. No, fine. I'm just telling you that, on the surface, it looks amazing, like to have hooks and everything, but making it like with the right guardrails, to not to be abused, like I'm saying, okay, hooks by definition, everything is cool. But as soon as someone will invent like 1,000 ways to abuse them, you will have a lot of headache later on to how to block it, how to, limit it. And that's the direction I would try to avoid maybe before we open it. Like, okay, it's
You need
like
to provide an agent skill that like reviews your hooks before you go live with them. It tells you like, hey, watch out, man.
No.
This is going to create an infinite loop. This is going to use too many tokens or whatever.
different things. Yeah, I think at the start we need to decide if we put it inside the agent harness, like basically the same process, the same loop, or we want maybe hooks which are kind of like controller Kubernetes from outside. I don't know if that makes any difference. I haven't spent much time thinking on this. Like I'm just giving the idea that what I would try to explore, like the hooks which are like outside hooks, then internal hooks and all these things inside the agent, and then maybe we can bring some examples from your real use cases. If you have already something that you couldn't do and you want to do it now, let's bring it as a requirement.
Yeah, maybe Dobes, do you want to look at the ADK hooks and see pick like a couple that you think would be the most useful, and we can think about like how we'd add those? Because I definitely don't want to add every hook all at the same time, right? I think we should start somewhere.
Yeah, I would probably just say like the tool calling, session start, and then like when the agent like finishes, like when the agent like sends its final.
Yeah.
Those would be the three that I would look into, because the tool calling one that's commonly used to insert like safeguards, right? So you try and block tool calls that look suspicious in some way. That's a very popular case.
Yeah.
Session start is useful for just like injecting a prompt. I guess the other one is just, I don't think I necessarily use it, but there's another very popular kind of hook people use where they look for keywords in the user's input, and then they like add like some extra prompt to it. Like if you type like the word search, then it'll insert like this prompt that says use maximum effort. Like it's sort of like an automatic skill injection kind of thing, rather than relying on the agent to load the skill itself. But those are the ones that come to mind as the most commonly used.
I've seen like hooks could be useful in some cases where, for example, your tool is producing a lot of output and other stuff, so you may have like a wrapper over certain tool calls to optimize number of tokens, to compress the output, and maybe like show only some number of lines before, after, and other to reduce tokens. But again, I think your use case running it inside Kagent directly, I'm not sure this is the only way, because you could run the coding agents like Cloud Code or something as something in the container and call it via MCP, and then you have full support of all the hooks, everything in your pod, ephemeral, right? You have your MCP, you check out Git directly there, you run everything. Like, I'm not sure if we will be able to implement. I'm not sure we will be able to implement the Kagent agents as a generic coding agents. We don't have enough internal tools for that, right? So it's
not yet. Not
no,
yet.
I have it working. I already use it as a coding agent right now. Like
there we go.
Okay.
But I'm just trying to improve it. Like I'm trying to level it up. I just have a few customizations that I had to make to Kagent. that I'm trying to
We
get
appreciate it. No, it's good. We want to.
It's fine. It's
yeah.
fine. It's like the same thing. I try to implement with ADK a separate standalone coding agent. I also like experimenting with it. It looks really amazing. So technically, I am with you. Yes, we can do that. But if that should be the harness and setup for the default agents, let's think about this. I'm still not sure.
Oh, I see what you're saying. But why my brain doesn't work? I have an idea and then it just leaves. I don't remember.
I'll just give you example, okay? Like very, very simple explanation. Currently, with a controller, we are able to create agents. We create relations between them, all tools, and we have kind of nice declarative way of doing this, right? As soon as we introduce the generic harness like coding agent with all these plugins, basically they introduce something very similar. They say, okay, this is my plugin for creating a sub-agents, and I can create like a five I don't know, sub-agents using just Markdown inside my main agent, which will be completely invisible. It will be like completely hidden inside, one Kagent pod. You will have like entire infrastructure of agents inside the agent, which you don't control. You don't see it. And need to think about if this is the right way of doing this, or we want to keep it like conceptually, properly organized. So we have like controller, we have all the agents on top, and we can build all these teams of agents and all of that. I mean, we can do anything. It's not a problem. We can do anything. Like,
I think of it.
Support it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think eventually. I don't know. I'm torn. Oh, I did not mean to draw that. I don't know what's going to happen, but yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. Either way, Dobes, I'm on your side. I'm just kidding. But
the
yeah,
other thing I'll throw in about hooks too is that there's another kind of hook where it's actually you set up a hook and then you tell it to run in, the LLM runs the hook. So you actually have a prompt that you send to the LLM and tell it, I want you to look at this tool call and tell me if it looks safe. And if so, I want you to return this JSON payload. And if not, I want you to return this JSON payload. And that's another kind of hook that's kind of
so the
cool.
the other thing I'll say is that one thing that we envisioned, and I understand why you wouldn't necessarily want to do this, is like we envisioned using Agent Gateway as it makes a tool call, doing this, doing that. But the thing is that as we're moving towards a more file system based, solutions, Agent Gateway, it's harder to do hooks there. And so I think that the architecture of Kagent should change to reflect that as well, and just be honest about the state of the industry and where things are moving, and support that.
No,
does that make sense?
For example, most of the agents in the industry, when they work with the file system, they kind of support file system as a Git, right? So you can fork, you can actually split it from a specific place and do other things, right? The question is is this functionality should be implemented inside the single pod, or it's like I said, it's a higher level which Kagent controls, which still not. I mean, we need to explore it. It's by the way, today leak of Claude code, source code, bring us a lot of ideas. I already did like a gap analysis on my coding agent, and I created architecture, documents saying which features I'm potentially missing on my coding agents, and it's kind of interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to see Dimitri. Yeah, I was gonna do something similar of I would love eventually for Kagent to be able to handle these use cases. We need, but to do it, we just need file systems, and so we need to, we just need to have that conversation of how to do that. And I think I have a way. I'll try and put up a design later today for that.
What do you mean about you need file systems? Like, what are you missing?
Like, you need the ability to iterate, right? Like, you need the ability to iterate over time. Like, have a conversation that with an agent that has access to a a Git repo that can just keep working and building and working and building. And
That's what MCP is for, right? That doesn't have to be part of Kagent. I mean, you could ship your own MCP server for it, but you don't.
You could, yes, that is another way. You could have all of that functionality in an MCP server as well.
We have it, and we are using it as currently as MCP, basically taking like Cursor CLI as MCP in kind of stateless form. So basically, you have agent, which is Kagent normal agent, which is preparing you a prompt with design and everything. And then you can just shoot it. Now you shoot it and it works like some time implementing, and at the end you have a pull request. So it's one way to do it in order to not to deal with all the PVC, persistence and all of that. It's like you can do one shot, and if something fails, you can just do it again, retry. But there are.
What I did is I set up the Kagent. I created an MCP server that manages the Kubernetes agent sandboxes. Have you guys seen that project?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So basically, it lets you like fire up these little pods that have your development environment in them, and then my MCP server just sends the commands and file system operations to those sandboxes. So the agents, I just tell them like, use these sandbox MCP commands and use it to launch a sandbox, use it to like run the commands, do git checkouts, git commits, everything happens inside the sandbox. And then I tell it like, oh, you need to like extend the sandbox sometimes if you want to keep using it.
And do you create one per session, or what do you do?
Yeah, generally they'll grab a sandbox like when they start working on something. They'll create a sandbox and then they'll do it.
Is it like agent session or is it MCP session? Because in this case, you may have multiple MCP also in parallel.
For the agent, so the agent will create it like using a tool call. It creates a sandbox, and then it knows, and then it returns back an ID, and then later on it knows the ID of the sandbox, so it can run like multiple operations in the sandbox. And then when it's, and then I just tell it to like regularly push it back to Git, so it'll create a branch as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so it is using a durable
branch, and then it just pushes periodically.
So it's using a durable file system. It just so happens that that it's not with the agent.
Yeah, it's not in the agent pod. Yeah, the durable file system is in Git basically, or like the sandbox file system is not super durable. Like the sandbox does get eventually deleted. So, but it is, yeah. The sandbox has its own file system, and then from inside there, it pushes to Git after every task that it completes. It pushes it up to Git. So then, if it sits around for a while, I don't respond, the sandbox gets deleted, then it can like start over again, create a new sandbox, and pull a branch down.
So, did you see my agent sandbox PR in Kagent?
No, I haven't seen
that. It basically did exactly that. So that's so funny that you did it the same way. But I haven't merged it because I've still been thinking about it. Well, we're almost out of time, but that's certainly one way to do it. But I also think that I sort of want to be able to give Kagent the ability to run in a sandbox environment, basically. Like, I think that's one way to do it, but I also am interested in if we can provide, like, have a mode in Kagent where the agents themselves get spun up in those environments and you can communicate with them in that way. And so that you don't have to have these like fancy MCP servers to do it. It's just native, right? You can just like basically use it as a long-lived coding agent or whatever, and then you could bring your own sandbox. It could be agent sandbox. It can be whatever. But Kagent will actually run in the sandbox.
I don't see why that would be better, because now you're just like putting more load on Kagent as a project, right? Like, it's nice to have these other. I don't know, at least for me, it's like I prefer to externalize things, right? Like, oh, there's already, like, if all you need to do is provide an MCP server, then people have the choice, like, you just document how to set that up. I mean, there is no good MCP server out there, though, so someone has to create it. So you could create that as part of the Kagent project, but yeah.
But
be the MCP server,
I think
great. Like, it's better maybe than being native.
Here, I would agree with Ethan in the long term, because I think the reason why we are using this as MCP right now, because we don't have enough knowledge how to make these coding agents yet. but we are getting more and more of it. We see like open implementations, open code and so on and so on. So, and also like if we will have like ADK native coding agents, which is following all the Kagent integrations, observability, fully integrated in the same SDK, hooks, and so on, it would make sense that this agent will just do this directly. We don't need to isolate it as a separate layer, because the abstraction of MCP, you need to track these things like as external tasks, calls. They may fail. You need to retry them. You need like a workflow manager on top of it. And when it will be inside the same agent, following the same like Go ADK, why not? It's you just need to add more tools on it. Do the file system abstraction.
I guess
make
the
it
reason
like
that I don't like it is because when the agent is not working, it's still going to have as much memory and disk allocated to it as when it is working, right? So the way I work right now is sometimes there's nothing going on, and sometimes I have like 5 different projects going on. So when I have like 5 projects, they can each have their own sandbox, and each of those sandboxes has like 20 gigs of RAM.
okay.
When I only have 0 projects, then it's just the agent running, and it only has like 100 megs of RAM, because all it has to do is it just acts as like a coordinator, right? It's not actually running like TypeScript compiler or the test suite or any of these things that use like tons of resources. So for me,
that would be the same thing here. That would be the same thing here. The only difference, in fact, it would just be less, because you would have 5 agents that each have whatever 20 megs, and you wouldn't have anything else running. So you would,
So
when
each
you want
agent session would run as like its own pod or something. Like how would that?
as a sandbox, yeah.
But how would you address it then? Like, I guess because they just know which session they're in or something.
So we would explicitly, so there's a number of ways we do this. I mean, one, I think we would have probably a new CRD or something, which would be like an agent session or an agent something. And you would communicate with explicitly that, right? So you, like when you want to create a new coding agent, you would spin up a new agent and you would communicate with it over time. You can put it to sleep, whatever. And then when you're done, you put it away, right? And so it's the life cycle is explicit, right? It's very different from like a conversational agent, like if you have like a support agent or chatbot or whatever, you want it to be available, you have multiple consumers, whatever. But if you as a user are trying to like accomplish a long running task, it's just a different use case. And the other nice thing is that if you use a sandbox and you have like a networking layer in there or something, you don't even need to expose the API keys or any keys, right, to your agents themselves. So I think there's benefits.
Would that mean that only one agent could access that sandbox at a time? Because for me, I use multiple agents, right? I have the reviewing agent and then like a few different coding agents, code exploration. Like I don't want them to all be.
Oh, interesting. So I see what you're saying. So I think in that case, yeah, you would need.
I think the sandbox approach is better.
Like
I'd rather have manual. I'd rather just like manually spin up a sandbox and be like, "Hey, we're using that sandbox in this session."
Yeah.
Then
I think the MCP also gives you this ability to use the token economy in a better way. You can run the subscription-based agent. You're not spending tokens from the, directly from the LLMs. You actually run something which is cost a fixed price, and you have monthly subscription, for example. And if we would do it directly with the same agent, this change a little bit how much it will cost you in tokens.
But you're just talking about running Claude code in a sandbox, something like that. Oh, yeah. I'm not trying to do that.
Yeah, kind of. But
because Claude code is not like they don't provide an API for their CLI, right? So you can't.
No, there are multiple coding agents that you can run like this, but you can run it definitely with this. Basically, there are flags when you run this as executable, where you say, okay, like all approved, do not stop, and just continue to work with like Ralph loop, in the MCP.
Oh, well, this I have to go, but this is a lot to think about. This is super interesting. I mean, I think what you've said about like, having multiple, like having basically all of your agents have access to the same sandbox. I think that's a really cool angle of this that I hadn't thought through enough potentially. And yeah, so I definitely need to think about this some more. We have another meeting Thursday. let's continue to chat. This is super interesting.
Yeah,
I think
if
there's
you
a
have
lot
any
to
demo, it
discover.
will be very nice to see some of
Yeah.
those, because it makes our understanding, more easier.
Yeah, I could potentially do like a screen share. I don't know if I can do an actual demo, but yeah, I could.
Well, that's a demo. What do you mean?
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, I could do a demo. Yeah, I don't have a demo, but I could do a demo. But not today. Time's up, like you said. I'll see. Hopefully, I can make Thursday. If not, maybe whatever next meeting I meet, maybe we can talk more about it. Whatever next time I make one of these meetings, what I meant to say.
Okay. Yeah, it was very interesting discussion. Thanks.
Talk to you guys later.
Bye.